welcome to the TBGPodcast, where we talk about identity, who we are, and who we're meant to be. I am Seth. I am a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur, and with me is my wife.
My name is Katie, and I am a wife, a mother, and I recently completed my degree in a Master's of Arts in Psychology,
Yeah,
and also an entrepreneur.
also an entrepreneur. She's been helping me quite a bit with the later stages of this business as we get it rolling. All right, well, today we are going to talk more about faith. Specifically, we're going to look at some biblical examples of faith and apply that definition that we've discovered. Um, and kind of go over from one story to the next and talk about specifically how Christ talks about faith in relation to other people. Before we do that, though, head on over to tobegotten.com. It is up and running. If you listen to our previous or first 3 podcasts or so, there was a little snippet of me talking saying it's up and running, but the podcasts were recorded earlier, and so we're like, yeah, it's not done yet. But it is done, so go ahead and go on over to tobegotten.com. You can see some of the shirts and stuff that we have there. One of them is the shirt that we are both wearing. For those of you who are watching, it's got the logo and a TBG right here on the chest. It's got QR code on the other side, so you can easily share. And also, you will notice, those who are watching, we are wearing hats. The hats are not yet on the website as the time of this recording and uploading. But they will be very soon. This hat here has just the simple logo, and Katie's hat has TBG with To Be Gotten underneath.
There's also on the website already some sweatshirts that have the TBG across the chest and To Be Gotten underneath, and on the back is a graphic that says Partakers of the Divine Nature.
Yeah. It's got one of our favorite texts on it.
Yeah, and they're super cool. I don't have mine yet, but I am chomping at the bit to get it.
Yeah, so go to tobegotten.com and check those out. Excuse me, pretty quick here. We're gonna have these hats and some more stuff up there. The Faith shirt is hopefully coming soon. We're kind of working on the design. We're in a lot of transition right now, so there's very busy.
Yeah, and maybe we'll just touch on that briefly because last time we spoke about how the house was selling and we were in the process of packing up and moving. Well, we're now on the other side of that, so the house is sold. We have now condensed our almost 2,500 square foot house, 3-car garage into 2 trailers, really.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a cargo trailer because we were overweight on both of the trailers. We had the front end fall off of one of the trailers in our transition.
There's lots of duct tape on that one.
Lots of duct tape. It's not waterproof. It's fine. The place we were going didn't work out, so now we're going to a different place. So we've just kind of been in this
big long transition period.
Big long transition period, and we're not anywhere close to being settled. But we're together. We're visiting family. We're trying to prioritize our relationship with God, each other, and our children, and overall are feeling really good about the decision and the direction we're going.
Yeah, it's really nice. We have almost paid off every single penny that we owe in debt.
To everyone, to anyone.
To everyone and everyone.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
Just, logistics of doing everything. We've been doing a lot of driving and hauling and logistics, and we bought a truck, bought a cargo trailer, etc. So anyways, we're almost completely out of debt. That is very freeing to have that time autonomy and the power over our money.
We're really excited to find land and kind of the next segment of this journey. But, we've been convinced of this way of life, which I think leads us into the definition of faith as we've been trying to really walk in this biblical definition of what faith is in a really practical application.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is a good segue. The definition, if you remember from the last couple podcasts that we've kind of gotten from the Bible, is that faith is that you are convinced of a thing, and so your actions are then consistent and permanent and in alignment with that thing. So we have been convinced that it is in our best interest and it's the right thing to do to get out of debt and to make our life such that it is a little, would you describe it? Simpler, more free with our time and our money and everything else. We want to spend more time together. We don't want to spend all of our time, slaving at a job to pay the mortgage. We've been convinced of this. The debt is a really big piece, and so over the last 8 to 9 months, we have been acting consistently with that, and we have sold our house, we have downsized, and we're now in the process of looking for land where we can build something that fits our needs and our wants and our desires and our beliefs much better. So yeah, that's the definition we're working with. You have been convinced of something, and so your actions are in alignment with it. All right, so should we go on to the first story? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through kind of stories one by one. I want to go through one story that kind of shows great faith, and then another story that shows no faith or less faith, and then kind of apply that definition and talk about each story and be like, okay, what were these people convinced of, and then what did they do about it? Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First story is the centurion. It is found in Matthew 8, 5 through 13. Now, most of these stories I'm going to be reading from Matthew, largely is because it's where I was reading when I came up with this outline. And yeah, but these stories do exist in other Gospels. One of them in particular I'm going to be reading out of Mark, just because Mark expounds a little more and gives a little more detail. All right, Matthew 8, 5 through 13. I hope you guys grab your Bibles and follow along here. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this man, Go, and he goeth, and to another, Come, and he cometh, and to my servant, Do this, and he doeth it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. So why did he have such great faith? What was he convinced of? Because you have in this story where, okay, maybe I should read the next couple verses after that, because Christ kind of continues on, and he contrasts, and he says, And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. So Jesus meets this centurion, and he comes and he says, Lord, I have a servant, he's near to death. And Christ says, I can come and heal him. And he's like, no. Like, I am not worthy to have you under my house. It's not necessary. You don't have to come to my house. He goes, I am a man under authority. I do what I am told, and I have men under me, and I say things and they do it. And so he says, all you have to do is speak the word and it will be done. And then Christ goes, wow, that is really great faith. And he says, even in the children of Israel, those, right here, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness. So Christ is saying that here's a man who is not a part of the people of God, right? Because at that time it was the children of Israel, they were God's people. And everyone outside of that, they were not God's people. And so Christ is saying, here is a man who is not a part of Israel, who has great faith. But those who are in Israel, who you would think should have great faith, because they are children of the kingdom, right? But instead, he said they are going to be cast into outer darkness because they do not have this great faith. So I think the really important question is, why? How can we have that? Like, why? What is it about the centurion that makes him have such great faith?
Well, I think, giving that definition of faith as being convinced of a thing and then acting in accordance to it, this is a really good example of that, because the centurion had firsthand experience of, being given orders and then disseminating those orders to other people and having them fulfill whatever he had said. And so he believed when he came to Christ that Christ was of the authority to do the same thing, and that it wasn't, his physical presence or, there wasn't some sort of magical spell that Jesus needed to do or some salve that he needed to put or whatever that we've seen Jesus do in other stories where that's how he healed. But in this one, he was convinced that all he needed was to just say the word. Um, and so that I think it aligns with what his experience was as a centurion and his line, his occupation. And it translated over to the authority that he gave Christ, essentially.
Yeah. So essentially, he was convinced that Christ had the authority, and so his actions were to come to Jesus and just say, no, 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 just say the word.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ is like, wow, that's great faith. Okay, next story. Storm on the Sea. This is a story where there is an example of no faith or little faith. All right, we're going to be reading from Matthew 8:23 through 27. And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he saith unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? So here we have an example of little faith. How does that contrast with the centurion? I think maybe the first thing that comes to mind as I'm reading it here is that authority piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because the centurion was like, oh, no, no, no. Like, you have the authority, just speak the word. And the disciples here are like, wow, why does the wave and seas obey him?
Also, the part of fear.
Yeah.
The apostles, or being afraid, even though they had Jesus right there with him.
Yeah, I was saying something about that the other day. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, you're saying that fear is potentially like the opposite of faith.
Yeah.
Or the result of faithlessness, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have, in this story, it's the disciples obviously are trying to cross the sea, and there's a big storm that comes up, and they're, in this fishing ship that is not, largely designed for that kind of thing, and so they're afraid that they're going to die. And if you look at this definition of faith being what you're convinced of, I think potentially fear is the opposite, because if you're afraid of something or afraid, like you're not convinced of anything. You're not convinced that it's going to be okay. You're not convinced that it's going to all end in, disaster. You're just not convinced of anything, and so you are afraid of what might be.
Well, I think maybe you're convinced of negative things, though.
Right, but I still think it's not even convinced of negative things, because if you're convinced of a negative thing, there's going to be some level of acceptance.
Mm.
Like, oh yeah, like this is going to happen. Like there's nothing I can do to stop it. All right. But if you are fearful, the fear comes from like not knowing and being afraid of either this, like it could be all these things, and being afraid that these things might happen. So I think it's you're not convinced of anything. So yeah, in this example, Christ says, "O ye of little faith," because they were not convinced that Christ, had authority over the waves and the sea and the wind, and they were not convinced that he had great power and that he was going to, keep them safe or whatever. And so they were fearful, and they shook him awake and like, "What are you doing? We're gonna die." And he's like, "Oh, you have little faith. Like, you are children of God, and God has it in hand."
Yeah.
Have any other thoughts, comments?
I was just thinking how this story would be different if it wasn't ye of little faith, but if they had great faith. Like, what would that look like? Would that be them coming to Jesus and be like, yo, like, can you stop this storm? It's getting out of hand. Like, we don't want to capsize. Or I mean, what would that look like if they had great faith versus little faith? How would the story be rewritten?
I don't know. I think potentially it could be, like the centurion. The centurion came to him and said, like, Lord, this is happening. And Jesus was like, I can handle it. They're like, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. Yeah. All right. The next two stories are kind of in one because they're both mixed into the same passage, as in one happens in the middle of the other. So that is the woman touching the hem of Christ's garment on his way to the ruler's house for his daughter. And this is the one we're going to read out of Mark. Again, like I said, largely because Mark gives a little more detail that I think highlights the faith point here.
This is Mark 5,
Mark 5.
21
Go ahead.
through 48.
Do you want to read it, or should I read it?
I can read it. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him, and thronged him. And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. And the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard the words that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter, James, and John, and the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entereth in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand, and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is, being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat.
So in this story, we have a ruler of the synagogue come to Jesus and say, Lord, my daughter is dying. Can you please help me? And he says, I will come with thee and help thee. And on the way, the multitude is thronging him as he's slowly going towards this ruler's house. And there is a woman who has an issue, and she comes and touches his garment. And you notice it is because she said, which verse is here? For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. So I think it shows, like, it says outright what she was convinced of.
Mm-hmm.
She was convinced that all I have to do is touch his robes and I'm going to be whole. And so, even after the 12 years of seeing all these doctors and all of them being like, it's hopeless. Like, we can do this, but, like, it's hopeless or whatever. And the issue not going away, but getting worse, she is still convinced that there is a way, and she says that way is Jesus. I'm going to touch his robe and I'm going to be whole. And Jesus, says, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. It was her faith that was the linchpin for her being healed. And by contrast, you see, I think not specifically so much Jairus, because I think he had enough faith to be like, Lord, like, come and heal my daughter. But more specifically, the people around him, I think, showed very little faith. Like that guy that showed up, the servant from his house, he said, your daughter's dead now. Don't bother the master anymore. There's no chance anymore. So he's, he's not convinced, again, that Jesus can help. He's not convinced of the power of God. And Jesus says, don't worry, only believe. And again, from one of our studies, that believe is that same word, faith. So essentially he's saying, have faith. Because right here, the woman had faith and she was healed. And so then he comes with them and gets to the house, and there's this throng of people that are all, wailing and crying because this little girl has died. And Jesus says, don't worry about it. Like, why are you crying? It's not a big deal. She's only sleeping. And they laugh at him. They laugh him to scorn. And yet, he goes in the house and he heals her and, brings her back from the dead. So ultimately, Jairus had enough faith for that to happen, I think. But maybe it was also, an example of faith that Christ was trying to give. Do you have thoughts?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Just really, again, I think this is a good example of how what we are convinced of and what happens. And like in psychology, we hear a lot of kind of blanking right now on the term, but where you manifesting. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Manifestation.
Getting a little hooey on us here now.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people who believe in manifestation, and not that I at all am one who believes in manifestation, but I do think that the Bible really clearly teaches that what we speak and what we believe really changes our future or even our present, rather. And, that's why we have data to support like having a gratitude journal, right? Writing down things that you're thankful for. 3 things every day, different things each day for 30 days is just as good as medications for reversing depression. And so we know that what we put our mind to or what we dwell upon dictates reality in a sense. And so here we see just kind of that example again of our faith, our belief system, what we're convinced of playing out. This woman believed that she just needed to touch Jesus. But if she had believed differently, if she believed that Jesus had to look her in the eyes and tell her that she was healed, then that's what she would have sought.
Yep.
And I think when you're convinced of a path, if this lady was convinced differently, right, she would not have stopped until she had gotten Jesus to do the thing.
Yeah, and I think even that would have been great faith.
Yeah.
Because she was convinced of a thing, and she her actions were consistent in alignment with it. Yeah. I think though that the example of the centurion, I think also might also be great faith in relation to what you are convinced of. Because Jairus here, what he was convinced of apparently was that Jesus had to come and touch his daughter. The centurion was only convinced he had to speak the word.
Right.
And so I think great faith, I think there's a component where your actions are consistent with it, but I think there's also a component of what it is you're actually convinced of.
Right.
Like if you're convinced that God is all powerful and can sit on his throne in heaven and speak the word, and his servants fulfill that word throughout the entire universe.
Yeah.
Like I think that is greater faith. But yeah, I was always told growing up by my mom something to the effect of, let's see, what is it? It's your, man, I can't even think of the progression now. It's like your thoughts turn into your words, and your words turn into your actions, and your actions turn into your character.
Actions turn into habits.
Habit, that's right, and habit turns into character.
Yeah, that was a poster in my sophomore year English class.
Yeah.
I remember looking at it every day.
Yeah, and I think that's biblical, especially when we get here's a little snapshot of hopefully what's to come. As I've been doing a little more study on this, um, which I will admit is not as great as what I wish because we've been very, very busy. But as I've been reading and running into stuff, the spoken word, what you speak, is a very integral part to this process, and that's I'm excited to get into some of that. But anyways, that's hopefully another in future podcasts. Um, but yeah, I think
Well, and I think just on the spoken word bit, just a little bit more,
okay,
again, like when it comes to what we know with research and stuff, whether it's child rearing or stuff like that, our self-talk, those things are so important because if we know with kids or family members or whatever, if you're always telling someone, oh, you're stupid and you're never going to amount to
yeah,
anything, they're going to fulfill your word,
yeah,
essentially. And it's kind of this really weird phenomena that we really place people in boxes and people accept it.
yeah,
Like they just take it at face value, if you will. And so it's something that I really encourage everyone to try to really monitor what are your thoughts saying about who you are or who other people are
and what's coming out of your mouth about it.
and what's coming out of your mouth about it. Because, everyone is living their life in their own little world. And so, most of the time, things that happen to you are not personal. Um, and even if it is personal, like they also have their things going on. So trying to have that like space of acceptance of like we're all just kind of trying to survive in this messy world and have a place of love and understanding. It doesn't mean don't have boundaries or anything. I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
but what we say about other people and our expectations of them are going to essentially come to fruition.
yeah, yeah. I keep telling our daughter, our 4-year-old daughter, um, don't say I can't
Yeah.
because your words are very strong.
Or your words matter.
Your words matter.
We always tell her your words
It's like
matter.
say I can, I can, I can.
Which usually results in a meltdown. But I can't.
Yeah, usually. So it's
But
it's
we're
very
trying.
it's very hard. We're working with it, but yeah, I think another thought that I've been having that um, we kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'm going to divert into it just a little bit about faith. I think the one of the ways that traditional Christendom thinks about faith is a bit like a slot machine.
Mhm.
Because you pull that handle, you keep praying, you pull that handle, and if you believe really hard, if you have a lot of faith, you pull it really hard. And every time you pray, you're pulling it, right? And the idea is that if you have enough faith, if you pull it hard enough times, that it will hit the jackpot, and God will give you what you want.
Yeah.
And so that's like slot machine faith, right?
Yeah.
But I think the biblical faith is nothing like that.
No.
Because there's a very clear step by step, like I am convinced of this thing, and so I'm gonna act on it.
Mhm.
And I think what it kind of comes down to is agency. If you have a slot machine faith, you remove agency from yourself completely, and all of that agency goes to God. You're like God is the one that's gonna do it. I just have to have enough faith, you know. Slot machine faith removes your agency, but if you say no, I have agency. Like, okay, so let's say it's something as simple as $1 million. I think it's really in line with this analogy. So you're pulling the slot machine. I want $1 million. I want $1 million. I want $1 million. You have a very low chance of that actually happening. Occasionally it does,
Occasionally.
and so I think that is sometimes why people stick with the slot machine faith, because sometimes
It works out.
it works out. But if instead, and this I think is example in the real world as well, if instead you're like, no, like not slot machine faith, I'm gonna go build a business, and that business over the next 10 years is gonna make me $1 million. Over the next 5 years or whatever,
I'm gonna work real
I'm
hard.
gonna work real hard every day. I'm gonna build this business brick by brick, and one day I'm gonna hit that $1 million.
But I'm gonna seek the kingdom first.
Yeah, seek the kingdom first.
Yeah, seek ye first the
Seek ye
kingdom and
first the
all of
kingdom. All these
this.
things shall be added
Yeah.
unto you.
So I have two things to add to that. The first thing is the slot machine faith, if you will, we'll go with that. I think a lot of Christians, I've heard sermons be preached on it, the example of the parable where the guy goes to his neighbor's house. He has company come over at midnight. He gets up, he goes to his neighbor's house, he bangs on the door. Hey, I need some bread. I don't have bread for my neighbor. And he keeps banging and banging and banging on the door. And finally the neighbor says, like, I'm in bed with my kids. Like, shut up,
Go
leave me
away.
alone. And he's like, I'm not leaving you until you give me bread, right? So then the neighbor comes down and he gives him bread. And I think and the other parable that goes with that of like, the one about knocking and the door will be open to you. There's a song about it. But anyways, so there's parables like that, and people say, see, look, you just have to demand it from God long enough, and eventually the squeaky wheel will get the oil, right? So if I just keep pleading God for this or that, I'm going to get the thing. And I think that if you reframe that exact same parable, but with the definition of faith as being convinced of a thing and then your actions being in accordance to that, the neighbor was convinced that if he went to his neighbor's house, first of all, he was convinced that his neighbor had bread.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he saw his wife making bread the day before or what, but he was convinced that there was bread there. So then he went to his neighbor's house, and he was also convinced if I stand here knocking long enough, my neighbor is going to get up and give me bread.
And the fact of the matter is, he was out in the middle of the night, out in the dark, out in the cold.
Yeah.
So his actions were
in alignment.
In alignment and doing with this thing.
Right. It was not just a slot machine luck of the draw.
If it was a slot machine luck of the draw, he would have sat in his bed praying like, "Oh Lord, please help my neighbor to come over and give me bread."
Exactly.
Help my neighbor to come over and give me bread. But instead, he's like, "No, I'm gonna go get bread from my neighbor."
Right.
So he gets out in the dark and the cold, and he goes and knocks on the door. He's like, "Dude, I need bread."
Right.
Go to bed. I'm with my kids. Nah, dude, I need bread.
Right. And so I think, I feel like in Christianity, so often I feel like our agency is removed from people. So that's the second thing I wanted to touch on. So often you hear people tell a story about, I don't know, just anything it seems like, but oh, well, praise God that all these things happened, and they remove their agency in the decision-making process of the things that transpired. And so well,
all we did was pray, and God answered our prayer.
Right. And I'm like, but you also did this or you did that to get the results, right? And so I really have a problem with that, especially with my educational background and knowing how important it is. Choice theory is a type of therapy. And it's something that I've been a really big advocate, I think, even in our own relationship of like, we have choices. Like, the choices might not seem like choices, like the brass tacks of it. Do we really have a choice? Yes, you always have a choice. You can always, sell your favorite vehicle, or you can move across the state, or you could live in a place that's not ideal, or you could work 4 jobs to keep where you're at. You always have a choice. Whether those choices seem feasible and practical to you is a different topic.
Well, and I think that is part of the convinced. Okay, I'm going to preface this just real quick. Part of this definition that I don't think we've really talked about much is the part of the convinced bit is convinced by argument.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking about, we always have a choice, but if you look at all of all of your options, like, I could go get 4 jobs, but then, this, all of these things, and you work through it, and you are convinced by all of the arguments that this is the right choice and not this,
right?
Then your actions need to be in alignment with this, and that is faith.
Yeah. But I think, just if nothing else, you walk away with nothing else. I mean, I think you should walk away with more than just this, but if nothing else, you have agency. God is not removing your agency or your freedom of choice. You have choices, you have options. You may not be convinced that those options are good options, and you may be choosing a different way of going based off of the argument, right? But you have agency. You're not sitting in front of a slot machine praying. I mean, you could be, and you should maybe look at praying differently, but you don't need to be sitting at the slot machine just hoping that things are going to fall into alignment, or God's just going to magically open up some mysterious door for things to work out to you. That's not faith. That's not practical Christian living. And Yeah.
Yeah, instead, I think, faith is you pray, Lord, like, this is something that I really feel like would be good for me or for my family. We ask for this. These are promises
Mm-hmm.
that you have given. You claim promises
That are in alignment.
that are in alignment, and then you step forward.
Yeah.
And you start walking and you start going in that direction. And that is the kind of faith that God rewards.
Yeah. And I mean, in our prayers, it's often to be like, not our will, but your will be done.
Right.
And I think that's an important aspect because we do not have omnipresence and complete understanding from the beginning of the end. So we could think, oh, this is the perfect situation or scenario for us and our family. But God can see that, well, if we go down that path, it could result in the death of a child or whatever. I don't know. And so, God can be protecting and guiding you along the way. And I mean,
And
that's what we
I
want.
think that kind of comes down to the convinced part, because it's like, what are you convinced of? In the moment, you're convinced that doing this thing is going to be the best for your family in alignment with the values that God has given.
Yes.
And you're praying for God's leading, and so you step in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's verses, I can't think of exactly what they say or where they're at right now, but there are verses that like God will lead you as you move. He will give you light as you act.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a little bit of a
Right. Side tangent.
but it's all on the main topic. But let's get back to the Bible here. And
Okay.
by the way, we are reading from the King James version. Largely is the version I have. I do. This is a really big discussion, but to a large degree, I do feel like it's probably one of the closer translations to the original language. Anyways, that's a tangent as well. All right, Matthew 15 is where we're going to go next. Matthew 15. I like this one. 15:21 through 28. This is the Canaanite woman. Matthew 15:21 through 28. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. So here's another example of great faith from outside of Israel. And I think I don't know exactly why Jesus ignored her first and then twice said something to her, kind of turning her away. I don't know, maybe he was testing her faith. I don't know exactly why. But the fact of the matter is, she was convinced that he would help her. Not only that he could, but that he would. Because, she cries out and he doesn't answer.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fairly discouraging if you're like, this person can help me, and then they don't even answer.
Yeah.
But her faith was great enough. Her actions were so consistent that she kept crying, where the disciples were like, dude, she's annoying. Send her away. And God, or Jesus said, I am not sent. Essentially, he's saying, I am not sent to you, woman. I am sent to these people. And she's like, Lord, help me. And then he's like, well, I'm sent to these people. It's not good to take from them to give to you. And she's like, yeah, but even the dogs eat from the master's table, eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And he's like, wow, great faith. And you notice he didn't even go with her.
No, she was just healed.
Yeah, from that very hour.
Yeah.
All he said is like, you have great faith. Be it unto you as you have desired.
Yeah.
And her daughter was healed.
Also, aside, I think this is proof we need to give our dogs scraps from the table. I don't know.
Yeah. Have inside dogs.
Right.
Feed them from the table.
This is my validation.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a dog and young kids. And she is largely very valuable because she will eat everything that falls from the table.
Yes.
But that is the standard. She cannot eat it off the table. She does sometimes, and she gets in trouble. She cannot eat it off the table, but whatever falls onto the ground and onto the kids' seats and everything is like
fair game.
Fair game. That when it is time, you come into the dining room and you eat that. And sometimes a lot of the leftovers they get landed in her dish.
Yep. Yeah.
A well-loved dog, even as annoying as she is sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so faith of the Canaanite woman. Great faith. I really like that one. Now, the next one, Peter on the sea. This is a low faith or a little faith one. Matthew 14:22 through 32. So we're going backwards just a little bit here. Matthew 14:22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship. By the way, this is right after the feeding of the 5,000. So Jesus feeds the 5,000. Turns very little into great with leftover. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. Here's fear again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they were convinced it was a spirit. They were afraid it was a spirit.
Right.
Anyways, but straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. And Peter answered unto him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. So I think here's another great example. I think for a moment, Peter had pretty good faith, but he let it slip. Because, he was for a moment, he was convinced that was Jesus. I think maybe throughout the whole story, he was convinced that was Jesus. He said, Lord, if it's you, bid me come. And Jesus said, come. So he got out of the boat onto the water, not into the water, onto the water. And he walked for a bit, but he lost sight of his faith. And he looked at the waves around him. And he became afraid. He lost his conviction.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely heard this story before we preached of, keeping your eyes on Christ. And maybe he was looking at the wind, because doesn't it say the wind? When he saw the wind boisterous. When he saw
the wind boisterous, he was afraid.
I'm curious about the language there, because last time I checked, I can't see wind. So I don't know if it was...
You see the effects of wind.
You can see the effect of wind, but I'm wondering if his eyes were still on Christ, but it was blowing him around, and, maybe the waves were sloshing at his feet, and it was more nuanced than just, oh, I'm looking down or I'm looking away from Christ, but he was not convinced of Christ's word in that moment.
Yeah, I think there's, kind of a pattern is, the people who are supposed to be the people of God, very stiff-necked and unbelieving. Because, here's a moment where, for a moment, Peter had direct evidence. Because, Christ said, come, and he got out onto the water and started walking on the water. And instead of being like, wow,
I'm on the
everything's
water.
okay.
Yeah.
Like my conviction was correct. Everything's okay. Instead of becoming more convinced, he became less convinced.
Yeah. I think this is also a good example of agency. Because, Peter had agency to get out on the water.
Mm-hmm.
He had the agency to become afraid again, the choice. Yep. And I think, we often talk about predestination and the issues there. But when Peter's sinking, Christ did not grab him until he said,
Lord, save me.
Lord, save me. Yeah. And so no matter what scenario you are in your life, Jesus is standing right there. He's ready to save you. He's just waiting for you to call out. You have that agency.
Yeah, and you notice it does not require great faith to be saved here.
Right.
Out of this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Because Peter cried out saying, "Lord, save me."
In that
And then Christ
immediately. Yeah.
stretched out his hand and caught him. And then he said, "Oh, you have little faith."
Yeah.
Now, I do think, it does require some faith, but in that moment, what Peter was convinced of is that the Lord could save him.
Yeah.
And so he cried out, "Lord, save me." So I think it requires faith, but the great faith was resulting in Peter walking on the water. The little faith was just enough to save him.
Yeah. Yeah. But isn't that nice that even our little faith can save us?
Well, yeah, that makes me think again of kind of the family model. How young children, like, you're still gonna save them from falling off the couch even though they eat backwards.
Yeah.
Like if you're within reach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
All right. A couple more examples here. All right, Matthew 20, 29 through 34. Matthew 20. Do you want to read this one?
Sure.
20, 29.
I just need it closer this time.
24. Okay.
What is it? 20 through 29?
29 through 34.
Okay. And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, 2 blind men sitting by the wayside, when they heard that Jesus passed by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And the multitude rebuked them, because they should hold their peace. But they cried the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And Jesus stood still, and called them, and said, What will ye that I shall do unto you? They say unto him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. So Jesus had compassion on them, and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him.
So I think here's another really great example because, there's these 2 blind men that are calling to Jesus as he passed by with a multitude of people who were following him. Now these people, they're able to walk, they're able to see, they're able to smell, they're able to do all of these things, and so they are following Jesus. And these blind men, they can hear the commotion, they can hear that Christ is passing by, and they cry out. And their faith was great enough that when they were actively discouraged, all the people around them are like, shut up, we're with Jesus.
Right.
They're like, no, Christ, hear us.
Yeah.
And Christ rewarded that. He said, what will ye that I shall do unto you? And they said, we want our eyes to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
And so he opened their eyes. It's a great example. Any thoughts?
It's good. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to the next one, because the end is really, I think, the point that I really want to get to, and it's a good end. Okay. Rich young ruler. This one's a little more difficult to see the ties in faith, but I think it's going to be good. Matthew 19, so we're going to back up just a little bit again. 16 through 26. Rich young ruler. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? So he's focusing on his actions, his works.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is, God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. And he said unto them, Which? Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these have I kept from my youth up. But what lack I yet? Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven. And come and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions.
Now, my initial thought on this is when Jesus was calling the disciples in the beginning, there were a lot of people there, and Jesus selected the 12.
Right.
And I've dwelt on that before. There were more people who followed Jesus than the 12 disciples.
Yeah.
Like, we focus on the 12 disciples, but there were more than just them. And I've thought, I wonder what it would be like to be there when Jesus is selecting the 12 and you're not chosen. And how would that make you feel, right? Like, I want to be close to Jesus. I'd love to be a disciple, be right next to him,
Mm-hmm.
be John, the beloved. Imagine being called beloved by
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, it'd
Yeah.
be amazing. And what hit me when you were reading it for the first time is Jesus called him. Here is this person who has the opportunity to be a disciple of Christ, to follow him, to do Christ's will. And all he has to do is get rid of some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of crazy if you think about it, of your stuff, which is all going to burn in the end.
Yeah.
It was more valuable to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also having a thought just as I was reading it, because when I was going over this um, earlier, my thought was like, okay, well, why is Jesus quoting to him the commandments, and only the six that has to do with love to fellow mankind?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't mention the commandments about loving God.
Right. Not taking God's name in vain. And
Right. And the young man said, all these things I have kept from my youth, what lack I yet? And then what really one of the things that was hitting me here is Jesus said unto him, if thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast and give to the poor, and thou shalt have great treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. So right there, he was addressing that other four.
mm-hmm. Not having other idols.
Yeah, come and follow me.
Mm-hmm.
Like love God.
Yeah.
So that hit me just now. But I think he was talking with him where he was at, because he comes to him with kind of a philosophical question.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Good master, I have this question for you. What shall I do? Right? And he's focused on his actions, what he's doing. He's focusing on works. And so Christ comes to him on that level.
Yeah.
He says, well, keep the commandments.
I
It's
do
like,
that.
what commandments?
Yeah.
These right here. He says, I do that. What more? Love God. Follow me.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't list off specifically the other commandments.
Yeah.
He says, follow me. And I think part of the point where I was originally going to go instead of this little tangent, which I think is great. But anyways, the ruler has great possessions, right? Because that's what ultimately turned him away. But when the young man had heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Christ addressed that. He said, go and sell that thou hast, and you will have treasure in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So Christ was saying, you have this treasure here, sell that and follow me, and you will have treasure in heaven.
Which will last eternity.
Which will last eternity. And the rich young ruler, he was not convinced of that.
Yeah.
His conviction was my possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he went away sorrowful. And I don't know, I suppose you could say that's faith, because he was convinced that his own things were. But at the end of the day, he was sorrowful, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, he did not receive a great blessing from Christ because he did not have faith. He was not convinced to follow Christ. He was not convinced to get rid of his possessions that he valued so dearly and
Yeah.
gain the treasure in heaven.
Yep.
All right. The last example, and I think this really comes down to the point of largely all of these stories and everything, and I think in part the point of faith. It's a story of a blind man. Matthew 9. So we're going to go back a decent amount. Matthew 9, 27
through 30.
27 through 30. And when Jesus departed thence, two blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him. And Jesus saith unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? Here's that word believe, that's faith.
Mm-hmm.
They said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, and this is the part that I like, according to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straightly charged them, saying, See that no man know it. But the point I want to bring out here, obviously these blind men have great faith because they follow him from where he was to this random house, right? Saying, son of David, help us. And so they're convinced that he's the son of David. They're convinced that he will have mercy on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, help us. And he says, what do you want me to do? And they said unto him that they want to see. No, that was a different story. Sorry. He said, do you believe I can do this? And they said, yes, we
Yeah.
believe. And then they receive that gift. But I think here's the important thing. According to your faith be it unto you. And I think that's great, because the centurion, what was his faith? His faith was that all that Christ had to do was speak the word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. Christ spoke and his servant was healed.
Yep.
But Jairus, he was convinced that Christ had to come
touch her.
and touch her.
The woman, all she believed
The woman, all she believed was, I just have to touch his robe.
Yep.
And that's what she received.
Yep.
So I think, that what I want to really try to bring home is, for us, what is it that we're convinced of?
Mm-hmm.
Because according to our faith, so that means according to whatever we're convinced of, in alignment, I believe, with the Bible, and God's principles, whatever we're convinced of, and that we go and seek and obtain, that's what we're going to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for us, this is something that we're really working on and practicing and exercising, is this business. We're convinced that my God shall supply all our need according to his riches and glory. We're convinced that he is the God that brought the people out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide and he will fill it.
Mm-hmm.
We're convinced of those things, and so we're moving forward with this business, even though we've
not.
only sold one shirt at the moment, and
Yeah.
we're pulling trailers around,
Yeah.
looking for land, and the money is scarce, and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
We're convinced, and so we're going to continue with this business.
Yeah.
And we believe that according to our faith, it will be unto us.
Yeah, 100%.
There any other? How else can we apply that? According to your faith, be it unto you.
I think another application that would be good and needs to be talked about more.
Okay.
Is believing that in Christ you're free. Free
yeah.
indeed. Because so often we hear people who maybe they get free, quote unquote, from their sin, and then next thing you know, they're kind of falling back into it, or when they kind of trip up, they give up. And I think that really shows what they're convinced of about who are you and who's God. I think I've mentioned it before, but in my Bible, when I'm reading through, I have multiple highlighters, but the two that I use the most is blue and purple. And blue is representing God's character, and purple is being a child of God, and therefore me, because I am claiming that Christ is my Father and God's my Father. And so I go through and I highlight those attributes of I'm beloved and I'm chosen and I'm righteous and all these things. And then I speak those things over myself, because I might not feel it, but it doesn't matter what I feel because God has said it. And then I also focus on who is God, because those things, what you're convinced about of who you are as a child of God and who God is really going to determine how you live your life, how you interact with other people, and then also seeing other people in the same manner of your child when they're screaming because you're trying to change their shirt. Real example of this morning.
Yeah.
You can see them as you're a little, just what a devil you are, right? And instead of framing it of, they're a son of God and they are loved and
they're my child.
They're my child. So I think that's another way of applying what are you convinced of who you are, because if you're convinced that you're a good for nothing and a sinner for always and there's no hope, and your road to sanctification is going to be a lifetime work with absolute no hope, but somehow
of actually getting there until maybe I die.
But maybe when you die, it'll be okay. Unless, you're part of the 144,000, then you need to be perfect before Christ leaves, because you're going to be, there's all of these crazy,
But no, that can't be right.
But that can't be right. Yeah, and so...
Then you're not convinced.
You're not convinced, right. So I think being convinced of who you are, who God has called you to be, because God's convinced.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's crazy is when you're reading through and you're highlighting these attributes, starting like Ephesians or Galatians, there's a lot there. If you want an easy start, and you're reading through, wow, God believes this about me? Like,
yeah, and in an earlier podcast, that was kind of my question. So what is God convinced about us? Well, like when we first introduced the concept of faith, it's like if God is faithful, because we call God faithful, right? If he is full of faith, what is he convinced of about us?
right.
And the Bible tells us
Yeah.
all of these things that you're talking about.
Yeah. And that will radically change your life.
Yeah. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, what am I convinced of? What is my faith? Because whatever your faith is, that's what you're going to receive.
Yeah.
And if you have great faith, you're going to receive great gifts. But if you have little faith, you're going to receive little gifts. According to your faith, be it unto you. Also, you were just talking about, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Taking your identity.
Right. Yes.
Your identity in being begotten of God. And being to be begotten by Christ.
Yeah, amen.
So that's why, that's what, the kind of the whole point of this business is identity. That's why I say at the beginning, welcome to the TBGPodcast, where we talk about identity, because this is who we are, and faith ties into it. Faith is that one of the pieces that we use to claim that identity that God has said that he has called. All right. I think we've pretty much gone through it pretty well.
Yep.
Thanks for listening or
Check
watching.
Out our website.
Check out our website, tobegotten.com. We do have some stuff up there, some shirts. And again, I'm going to say one more time about the QR code. The purpose of that QR code is so that you can easily share and spread.
Yep.
So as more shirts come, we'll have some topical shirts. Right now, pretty much everything is kind of, branding. It's about the, To Be Gotten logo and the kind of, that kind of thing, who we are.
Yeah.
But as we keep going forward, we're going to get some topical shirts on there. I think the faith shirt is probably going to come next, and it's going to be tied to the idea of moving mountains.
Yeah, I'm ready
to. I still really like that example.
Yeah.
And I think it fits well, honestly, with the slot machine faith, because you have the slot machine faith of like, I'm going to believe really hard that God's going to move that mountain for me. And the biblical faith is, that mountain needs to move.
Here's my pickaxe. Here's my 5-gallon bucket.
Here's my 5-gallon bucket. Here's my shovel. I'm going to pray for the Lord's blessing, and I'm going to start moving that frickin' mountain.
Yeah.
One shovelful at a time. Yep. And as you go along, like, hey, look, I picked up a backhoe for cheap.
Yeah.
And guess what? God blessed you with a backhoe. So now you're moving dirt a little faster.
Yeah.
Pretty quick, you got an earth mover. You got a whole bulldozer that you're moving.
Or other people see what you're doing and they jump on board.
They jump on board. Or maybe God will move the mountain.
Yeah.
The point is, though, that you're not going to sit around being like, Lord, move the mountain, move the come on, come on. Is it moved yet? Nope. Okay. Lord, move the mountain. I have more faith. More faith. Lord, move the mountain. You're not doing that. You're like, Lord, help me move this mountain. Here's my bulldozer.
The thing for me with all of this, I mean, we should really just wrap up, but the thing for me is I have always struggled. I mean, I've been alive for almost 29 years, and I've always struggled with faith being this nebulous of a concept of, oh, well, if things aren't working out for you, it's because you just don't have enough faith. And you're like, but what's faith? You just have to believe. Well, what's belief? It's faith. And you're like, I have no idea what any of this means.
Yeah.
And I mean, I walked away from the church for a while. Like, I've been on the road of this journey, and largely I feel like it was because I did not understand faith. It is so simple.
Yeah.
It is concrete. That's the thing. It's not nebulous. It's concrete.
Yeah. What comes to mind is faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Where we got this definition of faith is the word of God.
Yes. Amen. Anyways.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap up. Thanks once again for listening. Head over to tobegotten.com and check that out, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.